Welcome to episode 38 of Cilium Weekly, a weekly show where I cover a Cilium feature. And today I'm going to cover a feature which was released last week as part of iSurveillance Enterprise for Cilium 114, which is the enterprise edition of Cilium. And this feature is called Multi-Network, Cilium Multi-Network. And it enables you to connect a pod to multiple networks. And it's something that maybe can surprise you in many ways. Right? The premise of Kubernetes networking is that you've got your pod with maybe some containers, and they all share an IP address, and they're connected to. The pod is connected to a flat network, and the pod is able to connect and talk to all the other pods on within the network. But there might be situations where actually you want to have a pod connected to multiple networks. And it's not that different from having a virtual machine or a physical server connected to multiple networks like you had in the past, where maybe you would have a out-of-band like management network interface and a more like a actual data interface, or maybe you had a server connected to a front-end network and connected to a back-end network. And we, by enabling a pod to connect to multiple networks, we can enable a number of different use cases. And I describe this at length in the blog post, which you can go and read. But there are some use cases around maybe security and multi-tenancy, edge networking, virtualized network functions. Again, I will let you read the blog post in more details if you're interested. But for now, we're going to look at a demo. So what I've got for this demo is one of our new labs, the Cilium Multi-Network lab, where you'll deploy a virtual environment, cluster, Cilium 114 Enterprise is kind of pre-installed for you. And what we do is actually show you how easy it is to connect a pod to multiple networks, how you can apply different network policies depending on the interface and the network it's connected to, and also how you can observe the traffic and whether you can see traffic coming from one interface or another interface. And that's really the challenge you had with some of the other solutions that enable you to do multi-networking in Kubernetes, is that you have some restrictions on how on security and also around observability of your network packets. So that's I think one of the key things around this feature is that it enables you to still kind of control and observe the traffic while being able to connect your pod to multiple networks. Now, let's go ahead and check out the lab environment. And again, I will let you do the rest of the labs in your own time. But what I've got here is cluster, and we've got 3 nodes. They're all running, happy, healthy. Cilium is up and running. And what I've done beforehand is create a pool, right? If you're going to connect a pod to multiple networks, you need a pool of IP from which your pod is going to pick an IP address from, right? And that's something I covered in a different video a couple of weeks ago, the multi-pool IPAM mode, IP address management. And that's a requirement for this feature to work, right? Because you need to see multiple pool of IP if you're going to have multiple networks. Once you get your multiple pools of IP, you also need multiple, and we call it iSurveillance pod network. So I've got the default one. So if you don't do anything by default, if you deploy a pod without any kind of annotation, the pod will pick up an IP address from this network. And the other one here is this Jupyter network, which is my secondary network, if you like. And as you can see, it's going to pick up an IP address from this Jupyter IP pool here. And let's go and get a bit more information about it. The Cilium pod IP pool, again, that's based on this 192.168.16.0/20 range. And when I connect my pods to that secondary network, it will pick up an IP address from that pool. So I've got my secondary network, secondary pool up and running. The only thing I need to do to connect to it is actually to add an annotation. So I'm going to show you just a couple of pods I'm creating. I've got a pod called server default, and as you can see, it has this special notation which says network v1 alpha 1 pod networks default. That's how we're specifying which network the pod will attach to. Then I've got another one called server Jupyter, which is going to connect to the Jupyter network. And finally, I've got the pod, my client, which is going to be dually connected to the default and Jupyter network. So let's go ahead and apply this. Server default, server Jupyter, and client. Right. So we're creating these pods, and they're going to pick up an IP address. And what's interesting here is it will take a few seconds, obviously, for the containers to be created. Is we're actually also creating two Cilium endpoints. And an endpoint is really a way to, it's how we refer to application containers that share a common IP address, right? So that's an endpoint within, from in the Cilium world. And that's going to enable us to apply different network policies to different endpoints. So what we've got here is we've got the client which has picked up an IP address. Let me bring this back here. The client has you can just see its primary IP address here. If you do a get kubectl get pods, you can see its primary IP address. You can see the IP address of the server default, and then as you can see, the server Jupyter is in that secondary network. If I want to go ahead and see the other secondary interface, we just do a kubectl exec and do an IP address show. And my client, as you can see, has an IP address in the default network and has also an IP address in the secondary Jupyter network. Right? So we've been able, by simply adding an annotation to our pod, to connect the pod to multiple networks. And what we just want to show here is just simply connectivity. Right? Are we able to connect our pod to servers in these different networks? And both of these servers are actually running some kind of echo server, right? What they tell us is the IP address of the source that they are seeing, right? So this is going to help us show you that the traffic is coming from that secondary or primary interface. So first we're going to do a ping. That's successful. And ping to both from the client to the default server, successful, and from the client to the secondary server is also successful. And if we do a curl, what we can see to the server located in the default network, you can see the source IP of that client, and it's 10.10.2.69, right? So the traffic from the client to the server in the primary network was sent from the client's IP address in that which is here, which is in that primary network. And finally, if we do a curl to the server in the secondary network, again we see the source IP being that of the secondary interface, which is here. Now, again, this is a short video. I try to keep them fairly short. What you can, again, go ahead and do the lab yourself. What you can then do in the next part is apply different network policies and again observe the traffic. You also have a quiz and an exam at the end of the lab, and you can also get a badge on completion of the exam. And really, that's it for now. If you're interested, go into the lab, read the blog post, let us know what you think, and let us know if you think of any use cases interesting with having a multi-network pod. And thank you very much for watching.